what happened was when I sold out there, the PSF, I was looking at two choices, either to buy back there or to buy back to District 3. Because I still believe East Coast, I'm a Katong boy most of my life.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Amber is your reference.
Yeah, I abandoned already. I'm no longer in the East Coast anymore. Yeah, a lot of them question my betrayal, right?
Welcome back to Chills at TFC. I'm your host Reggie, aka Euro Chief Financial Coconut, and I'm joined with our regular friend
Rakesh, TFC team.
We have a great guest today on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, it's Justin. I'm the CEO at Orange Tea and Thai.
Yeah, how has it been? How is it like being a CEO? You kind of went through that ladder, right? I look at your LinkedIn, you climb. So how has that been?
It's a totally different game, a totally different purpose, right? I always tell people, probably the only possible two reasons. One, to become an agent is because of course, the money is quite good. That's for one. But the biggest thing really is the freedom and flexibility, right? Like if I was still an agent, I say, hey, Reggie, I feel like having pad thai, but real pad thai.
Let's fly.
Tomorrow?
Let's go.
Let's go, man.
Yeah,
now I'm sorry, I need to go into my leave system and then see what's going on. A bit different. But having said that, I think me stepping into this space was also more of a purposeful one. I think reaching a certain age as well, it wasn't so much about your own needs in terms of finances and also freedom and all that, right? I think being purposeful is very important.
I know.
We actually don't have very long a life if you really think about it, right? To be so-called productive and purposeful.
Yeah.
We spend the first 20, 30 years figuring things out, maybe 30 to 40 trying to hone your skills and expertise and experience. Then you pretty much probably only have 40 to 55 to be really the most productive. Beyond 55 is probably more advisory, mentorship already. So if you really think of the window, you only have that much time to be, like I said, very intentful, very purposeful, and probably the most productive in your life with regards to work.
Yeah. And make too much money already. So not enough motivation, right? So need to get a purpose.
Different needs, Maslow's hierarchy of
Right,
needs,
right?
right?
Yeah,
You settle the baselines, not that you made a lot of money, but
That's why 55 is advisory.
That's why I need to take on the CEO role, right? So they got reason to keep doing this.
No, I mean, most people think it's a glamorous thing. I mean, I have no ego about this. I do this because I used to be at Orange Tea, then I left, and then I was so-called called back. Right, because it wasn't just the board and of course the leaders that wanted me, but a lot of people on the ground that I used to work with also every time, despite me wearing a different colored lanyard in another company.
Competitor, huh?
Yeah, small space, let's call ourselves friends. There's still always that warm hospitality when you meet old friends, right, old colleagues, and they always say, hey, when are you coming back? So when the CEO came to see me early last year before Chinese New Year, and they were saying, your name has been mentioned quite many times and we want you to sort of like come back to help out. So like I said, it's really more purposeful work, because to be honest, just staying back there, you still continue to make money, you have that freedom, the flexibility as well. It's very much, I would say, self-driven kind of motives, right? Because it's just all for yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas this, not to say that it's selfless, but it's more purposeful because you're doing it more for the greater good of the company, the people. Yeah, we've got almost 3,000 people, and you want to help them to really turn things around. This game of real estate, I mean, as in even in investment, it's getting harder. In fact, for us as agency business as well, there are also a lot of challenges. Right? Truth be told, the Singapore market is always a regulated one, and the policies are in place to keep market performance moderated. So in a way, you can say it's boring, right? But in this day and age where markets are so unstable and dynamic, sometimes boring is good. But at the same time, that keeps the numbers moderated. So you have a lot of mouths to feed. Now, industry has 35,000 agents. You need volume. You need transactions. But when you have this kind of moderation coming in, it gets a bit more challenging. Right? I mean, if you look at the numbers purely, 2021, we had like more than 15,000 transactions new launch. Last year, we barely crossed 6,000. So the numbers are quite different. Right? But it's still the same market, same number of agents. You're talking about 15,000 transactions now coming to 6,000. Where's the business going to come from for the agent? So we also have to learn to innovate, push ourselves to deliver more value, and most importantly, remain relevant.
That's why you're on the show, man. Right?
We're here to discuss all these things openly.
To be relevant, right?
That's right. To hear from the ground as well. I think
housing
is forever a very big topic in
It
Singapore.
is.
Occasionally contentious because it comes to deal with like some societal baselines, right?
Of course.
Affordable housing, making sure
course.
everybody has a
Of
roof.
course, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe I could dig deeper into what you mean by moderated. Like Singapore's property market is very moderated. Like, yeah, can you just help us understand a little bit more?
Well, with measures coming in since, 2011, the government has been really relentless with coming in each and every time the market shows a little bit of too strong a performance, right? So their policy is very often, I would say, reactionary. It's never been sort of proactive. Take for the most recent one, of course, last year, 60% ABSD for foreigners. To be honest, we were looking at the market figures in quarter 1 last year as well. Most people always say, oh, foreigners are here and they're driving our prices. Truth be told, since post 2013, when the ABSD came in full force for foreigners, prior to 2013, we used to have foreign transaction volume maybe accounting to about 15 to 17% of the market. So that's quite substantial, almost a fifth.
For new launches?
No,
No.
market in total.
So
private
market in total.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 15 to 17%. It's almost a fifth of the market. Post 2013, it fell all the way to 2 to 4% and maintained there for many, many years. Yeah, because again, ABSD was quite prohibitive to foreigners. But early last year, in the first quarter, we started to see that trend change. And all of a sudden, we were surpassing 13, 15% again, going back to that marker. So obviously, when the government senses that, they react. Right, so it's never blunt policy. I would say that our government is responsive, responsible, and reactive. Right, so these things are not here for fun.
Of course,
right?
of course.
Yeah.
No one sets policy for fun.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a very serious thing because policy affects all of
Everyone,
us,
yes,
right?
yes.
I was on Channel News Asia as well. They were talking about how developers also now, because in our latest budget, of course, they talked about the relaxing of the ABSD
90% sales,
for
yeah.
developers and all that. Because even developers, they are still part of the ecosystem, right? Multiple stakeholders involved in the ecosystem of real estate in Singapore. Anywhere from urban planning to financial institutions. Every piece of land that's bought is geared. Every development that's constructed is geared. Right? There's a lot of stakeholders involved in the process. So it's a very serious ecosystem. And again, when 90% of us are vested in Singapore in real estate, be it public or private housing, the government's mandate is really to make sure that this stays stable. Because even if it's not just about providing housing, again, the backbone of housing is leverage. A lot of us are also levered in this. We're not just levered in terms of financial institutions on the private sector, but a lot of us also use CPF. So there's also public funds involved with this. So it's a very serious business. That's why moderation is there. It has to be regulated. It's not supposed to be a market that's meant to experience the ups and downs like many other countries. To be honest, as agencies, like I said, volumes hit us the hardest. It doesn't matter whether it's 2,000 PSF or 3,000 PSF. That's marginal to us. But the volumes are the ones that hits us the most. So every time a measure comes out, you see there's also a knee-jerk reaction in the market. And we also get hit the most when it comes to that. And it's not about making money. Again, it's about providing the livelihood to the agents. Yeah. So in terms of Singapore market, moderation. We have no choice. Small island land is really, really a scarce asset to us. And we really have to look at how we manage it carefully. Because again, the ecosystem is intact with so many other stakeholders involved and serious stakeholders, right? Be it society, homeownership, the retail investors.
Important. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Very important,
locals,
yeah.
the foreigners who choose to invest in us, businesses. You look at the verticals of the building and construction industry, it's massive as well, right? There's such a long chain to it. Just doing one building, you've got aircon, you've got QS, you've got architects. It provides a lot of jobs. So to keep this stable and secure for all, to keep stable employment and stable business for all as well, it's actually a tremendous responsibility. So we have no choice but to keep things moderated and regulated here.
For me, I find it a little bit in terms of, we look at the ground, right? Like we were discussing earlier, it's harder for us to, people trying to find their homes to just get into the market. Now you mentioned it's supply issue to a certain extent from what you just said in terms of transactions and just new houses coming in, so on and so forth. The question I have is are you sure it's a supply issue? Are you also seeing like some sort of a demand, like effectively in equilibrium, if you will? So there's a lot of demand going into the market, just trying to make that buck, right? Because how do you see the next 5 to 10 years, given all the different variables that we've spoken about since like COVID?
I think before we talk about the markets, rightfully you pointed out, it's the culture that was preset from your parents' age. I grew up in a family like that. The only reason I'm in real estate because my dad and mom introduced me to it as well, right? I started looking at homes at 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We started a process. I used to share this story with people as well. In my family, there's a methodology on how we go about looking for houses, right? I'm the one looking at classifieds, so that should give away my age.
Oh my
back then
god,
when we used to,
classified.
yeah. Armed with a highlighter.
If you know classified, you comment in the comment section, okay? You are from a certain time period one. Yes, classified leh.
Oh,
A
wow.
classified age group.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you come back from primary
yeah.
school, you will go open up newspaper.
Yeah. From the age, I because I had an interest, I always wanted to be an architect, so I was always very curious about houses. But my parents looked at it always from more a pragmatic investment standpoint, because my dad also got into it quite early. He told me when he got his first job, within like the first year or so, he bought his first apartment. And then subsequently, a couple of years later, he saved up enough money to do a secondary investment. And back in those days, in the 80s, that's when Singapore also went through quite a steep incline. But I think there was also quite a big decline in 87 or something like that, if I'm not wrong. So during that time, it was also possible. My dad used to share me, right, when he first came out to work in 1980. Engineer by profession, worked in Singapore Telecoms, back then Singapore Telecoms, Singtel today. As a fresh grad, he earned about, he told me, maybe 12 to 13,000 per annum. But a 3-bedroom private condo in the East Coast was about 70,000. So if you look at that, you are pretty much about...
So easy.
Yeah. But of course, back then, mortgage rates were also very high. Gearing, there was no TDSR, none of this stuff. So it was a bit more prohibitive for people. But having said that, you can see already the big difference compared to where we are today, right? If you were prudent enough to save a bit of money on the side and always put it back into the market and be disciplined about it, you could have amassed quite a fortune, which many of our pioneer generation and so on have. That's why they're today, to be honest, the reason why also a lot of young people are also able to afford houses today.
It's because their parents have houses, right? Yeah.
Thanks to, the equity that has been created from the previous generation. So we are very fortunate in that aspect. A lot of wealth has been generated from the previous generations, and it's now being able to be transferred. As a more modern society as well, even like I told my dad also, why you wait until you pass away, then you leave something to your family? No, just liquidate, take all your money, enjoy yourself. You want to give your kids a blessing, you give it to them when you're alive. So if you want to help them maybe jumpstart their first property, stuff like that. So a lot of them are more progressive today. And because a lot of people, our parents' generation made money there, they still believe in this. And therefore, they actually also want to cultivate this in the next generation. And they compel their kids to get into it as early as possible. I have a client previously. The minute her kid came out of school, got their first job, 3 months later, she will make sure that they buy a property. And they will support the upfront first.
But is this belief still valid? Like, is this whole like accumulation through the property vertical?
Correct.
Is it still going to be around? Because you did say that it's moderated, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Very good question. So that's why...
Because I'm a professional, I ask questions for a living.
So it's really pursuant to where we were getting to, right?
Yeah.
So this was all to set the context of why we are thinking this way today, because culturally we are so. And the first generation, second generation of Singaporeans have been through a great era of growth, especially when it came to real estate. So that cultivation is there. You want to tell your kids today, hey, please buy something ASAP. Then we ask ourselves this question in moderation, right? Truth be told is, with this moderation happening, is it still worth the while to get into real estate? Then we have to look at real estate investment, the whole mandate or the whole objective of it. Real estate investment, if you ask me, if it's a primary home, it is not an investment. It's simply a savings plan. Every month you pay the bank back the mortgage, you build your equity over time. That's it. There's no miracle solution to it. But it's a forced discipline. Instead of taking the money and going for holidays or buying another bag or watch, every month you put 3,000-4,000 into your home. And you're helping yourself to build equity over time. It is still your money, right? Just sans the interest component. You're paying down your principal. So your primary residence still remains a good forced savings to have, while at the same time being socially responsible to have your own roof over your head instead of burdening either your family member or somebody else to live with and stuff like that. So good savings plan, also a considerate and socially responsible person to have a roof over your head without burdening somebody else in society. But second note of real estate would be real estate investment already. So you buy a secondary property. Is it really worth the while today? Now, if you take the same context of it as a savings plan, but this time your savings plan, you're not putting much money there because your tenant in there is helping you to pay down your mortgage. Then you hope by best scenario that there's some positive gearing or positive cash flow. But that is a part today that is becoming increasingly difficult, especially more so in a high interest rate environment. The last 2 years, Singapore has been very, very lucky. While the world endured high interest rates and plummeting rentals, Singapore enjoyed higher interest rates at the same time, higher rentals. Because for some geopolitical pressures that were happening up north and all that, we had an influx of people coming in. And you saw rentals moving up 30,
Yeah.
40, 50%.
To a point that some of my friends just left, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and because they're not Singaporeans, right? A lot of
Yes.
them are like,
They had to endure this.
yeah, they come here, they work, they're professionals, and they're like, oh my God, this is too much. It's eating up into my pay. I gotta go.
That's another conversation altogether, right? We were just having this discussion over lunch at DBS as well. There were a lot of people from Hong Kong who came in, but after 2 years here as well, they realized, gosh,
It's too much.
this is almost as expensive, if not more expensive than Hong Kong. You know, we used to say, oh, Hong Kong is still the most ridiculous place, right?
But it still is like, it's very disgusting.
Yes.
It's very tight.
Correct. Very tight
Yeah, I've
spaces,
been
and you
there,
still
it's
pay
crazy,
a lot
yeah.
of money for it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But even then, these people who used to endure that came to Singapore, and now they also felt it here. So, I mean, this is another conversation altogether,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
On
yeah, it's a
a
different-
nationalistic level, I mean, as much as we all say, wow, look at us, we are making good money for rentals, our asset prices are all going up, we're all, 90% of us are, woo, you know, singing a merry tune together. But at national level, we are losing our competitive edge. We are becoming too expensive. If more of these foreigners go back, we lose our rental demand. Then rentals will start, as you can see, they're already starting to relax and moderate also.
What is the situation now?
It's definitely softened quite a bit. As you know, you said you have friends going back. But if one thing that I always sing praises for the government is that they are always very proactive in wanting to bring new businesses here, bring more productivity into our economy. So while people leave, we're still trying to create more new industries, more new arenas for growth as well in terms of our economy, create more job, more employment. So we have a nice balance there. That's always the challenge for the government to maintain, right? Because like, why did rents go up so high? Because that was unforeseen. It wasn't anything we were creating, but it was just happening that there was tensions up north and everybody just decided to take flight. And then obviously the next best choice, if not for Hong Kong, for a lot of them, the next best choice was always to come here to seek refuge. And with a housing supply that is so limited, that does not allow for much flux or fluctuations, right? When you have an exodus like that happening or a big group of people taking flight to Singapore, you're definitely going to create a ruckus in the market. Couple that with some COVID delays for construction, some people had sold their homes, they needed to rent. So you put two and two together, that's why rentals went up through the roof, right? So, but that is a seasonal fluctuation.
So what is the baseline? What is the real market today?
We will probably see the rental market coming back to pre-COVID levels, right? Having said that, interest rates remain high. So today, if you're a landlord, are you really going to suck it up to say, hey, you know, my mortgage went up from 4K to 5.8K, but then my rental went up to 6.5K. I was able to do it. And now my mortgage is still 5.8K, but rentals are seemingly a bit weaker. Am I really going to go back to 5K? No way, I don't want to suffer a shortfall. So for some of them, they might hold. So it really depends on how much you can weather the storm, right? Yeah. So that's why from that sense, if you're coming to the market today, that is the reality you need to deal with. Because going back to what we were talking about earlier on as a secondary property now, if your mortgage is 6,000 today and you can only rent 5,500, every month you have a shortfall of 500. For some people, it still makes sense, or it's still a great place to build capital. Tenants still at least helps me to pay for a majority of my loan every month. It's just an additional $500 to have a secondary property. Maybe still possible, but some people may not even be able to tahan the $500. So they have to do their own mathematics, right? So the game of real estate is as such, very easy to enter. But the ultimate winner is the one with the holding power. If you can't meet it this cycle goes down, you don't say, oh, I better get out. You know, it's not so straightforward, right? Because if you get out now, firstly, you lose the rental opportunity. Secondly, is you may not be getting out at the best price. And it's not like a stock, right? You put yourself in the next position to fill, and then when it hits the bottom and then it goes up again. Real estate is not like that, right? Yeah. But having said that also, because the market is so moderated here, it's also very hard for us to see that kind of dip. Because I'm sure you guys have friends also lah, waiting for the market to crash,
Mm.
waiting for some correction to come.
And those are people around the world, not just in
Yeah,
Singapore.
they're
lah.
opportunists lah. But you see, we have defied gravity so many times. And not to say that the Singapore market is invincible, right? I always tell people, I don't study real estate if I want to understand real estate. I actually study people, population, and then more importantly, employment. Because it's a simple equation I always share with people, right? Employment equals income. Income equals the ability to pay a mortgage or pay rental. Without income, without employment, that cannot be supported at the end. That's when real estate market will start to shake. But on that note, again, thanks and kudos to our government, who's always very proactive in terms of economic productivity. If you notice during COVID also, what was the first relief package that came in? It was to protect jobs. So the government knows as long as you keep people there employed, they have income, life doesn't really get disrupted. Everything else can still maintain.
Our listeners out there want to get into the market, right? And right now we're facing some high earners, but not retired yet. Is that what? Or not
I
ready
think so.
yet?
I think
not
so.
ready yet or not retired?
I don't know, man.
Whatever.
What is a
one of
Henry?
the statements, right?
Please put
Where-
in the comment section. Tell me what's a Henry.
Yeah.
The Henry, right?
Yeah.
And these I see in two forms. One is, yes, they're earning, they're trying to save, but they can't afford their first home,
Yes.
right? They don't qualify for HDB, for BTOs or anything. So they look into
Oh, they are the swaking. The
They-
ones that are stuck in the middle, right?
Yes,
Like your
correct. So
your,
these- yeah.
your income graduated from the HDB system,
correct.
but you're not making that
You're
much
not
that you
quite
can
there yet.
comfortably own the
Yes,
condo.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for them, right, even just getting started, they feel, and I guess this is a general phenomenon in Singapore, I don't know about the rest of the world, where you are actually well-to-do, right? Technically, by standards of median income, you're well-to-do, but you don't feel well-to-do because you can't even afford a home. So how would you then suggest for these people to say, okay, these are some things that you can do, or what is the government doing to try and address these sort of people's, or yeah, I'm sure you face this on a day-to-day basis.
What
coming
can
from
you
there.
do? I think something actionable would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go back to the premise again of why you get into real estate, lah, right? It's a forced savings program. So sometimes people, where they don't have sufficient amount of money, sometimes the good thing about being in Singapore is that we actually have quite a spread of real estate being available to us.
Well,
In-
Tampines welcomes you.
Hey, Hougang also, please.
Yeah, cannot buy the CBD. Tampines welcomes you. Join the 5% of population.
Yeah. Yishun as well. I mean, there are many places.
No,
yeah.
Yishun is a bit sensitive, right? Yishun is a special place, right? Shout out to Yishunites. Okay.
Yeah, but the truth is, we do have that
Mm.
availability. You see, but the problem is also a lot of us, a bit of first world privilege, lah, to be honest, right? You don't want to buy an inferior product or what you deem as an inferior product. You say, no, of course, I got money. I'm a higher income earner. Why should I subject myself to stay at a place that's a bit further from town? Doesn't make sense also. But it is still an available choice. It is just whether, again, you ultimately believe in what's the objective of investing in real estate. There's nothing wrong with starting off at Yishun, starting off at Ponga, or that. It's a savings program. You slowly accumulate your wealth from there. You dig whatever you have from the bottom of the barrel, you piece it together, see how much ultimately you can come up with. There are places you can still buy for less than $500,000, right? It's just whether you accept yourself living in a place like
Like
that.
where? Yishun. Yishun.
He's talking about JB, bro. He's talking about JB.
Yeah, there are
JB.
places here.
Yeah.
There are places, I don't want to say JB next time when the MRT station is ready.
Yeah.
But I mean, truth be told, there are available options. So again, the premise of it is, you say it's not enough. But in many other countries where home ownership is low, most people don't even think about this because they spend most of their lives renting. The only reason why you feel poor is because you're not able to become that 90% of Singapore that owns your own home, right? But actually you can. But then your standards may not quite match up to it. And again, going back to the premise of, as a primary residence of a forced savings program, the earlier you start, the better. But if you're saying, no, I want to save a bit more money so I can buy something better, I don't want to waste my time going through that route, then you have to make sure you find alternatives to invest your money elsewhere. Do you have another forced savings program that can give you that kind of return? The other measure that I always remind people in Singapore of whether or not you should really buy into real estate is simply your age. I remind people we only borrow until 65 years old. Every year you move towards 65 is a year of opportunity cost, especially after 35. If you are blessed to be able to start at 27, 28, or even better, because the whole power of real estate is not about ROI, but it's about ROE. right? When you have a multiple to buy 4 times what your money can buy you, it's a very powerful thing, especially even more so when you can even use CPF, right? No other instrument will help you to build cash like that. Very tough. I mean, unless you're some financial whiz, some guru on cryptocurrency or whatnot, yeah, you made your money, you ran away and fast and put into real estate, some physical assets.
I'm sure you met quite a few of those, right?
We encountered quite a few but we also encountered some who went completely bonkers into it. I remember meeting this couple. They came to rent one of my client's properties. A very young couple. So I thought, Singaporean couple come and rent. Probably they want a very short-term lease. They said, no, actually we want the longer the better. I said, okay, so 2 years and now, no, we want to look 3-4 years. I said, okay, is it because your current property construction has been really delayed for a long time or whatnot? They said, no. I said, you sold your place already? They said, I sold our place already. So I said, you're not intending to buy back? They said, no. Then I joked. I said, why? Did you go full on into crypto? Then they smiled at me. They said, yeah, how did you know? So they took all their entire sales proceeds to put into crypto. This was before everything plummeted. Yeah, so there were people who also went down that route. But there were also intelligent people who made their money and quickly cashed out and put into physical assets. Yeah, so we see a mix of both, to be fair, right? But again, like I said, the whole premise of getting into real estate, beyond looking at secondary investment, even your primary residence, is a forced savings plan. But more importantly, the second part to it is the ROE because of leverage. And leverage, the earlier you start, the better off you are.
I think this is a good point you brought up, which again, I would like to address. It's different from culture to a certain extent.
Yes.
When you buy a home, they say pay it down as fast as you can.
Yes.
You don't want debt.
Yes.
You want to get rid of it. No mortgage, the better.
Yes.
But what you've just talked about is leverage. You only can leverage on debt.
Yes.
So how would you address that?
Yes.
And what is your advice to us inspiring, or the Henrys?
Yeah. So that's why I think it's important to again remind people. Also, real estate is somewhere along the way we all got this crazy idea that wow, it's all about making loads of money. That's why you must buy real estate. Real estate, like I said, at the primary residence level, is simply a forced savings program, providing you a roof over your head, with the ability for you to multiply your money in terms of leveraging, right? Because you have 4 times the multiple of your investment capital. You wouldn't do that kind of leveraging on stocks. That's
Some
quite
do
risky. Some do. Some do. For me, I have a faint heart, so I don't think I will go down that route, right? That's why I'm more into real estate. So again, culturally, yeah, you're absolutely right? Culturally, we also need to step away from that whole idea that, I must buy real estate because it's my pot of gold and it will make me a lot of money. No, it is simply a forced savings program as your primary residence. And it is important and essential that you start early because of the game of leverage, even more so in Singapore because borrowing is mandated by MAS, right? They control you age, they control you by TDSR, by MSR. Right. So in a way, some people, what you talked about earlier on, some people say, pay down your loan as fast as possible. Yeah, that's in the case in some countries where interest rates are like fluctuating all the time. There's no proper banking system. In some countries, you can even do 110% of a property.
Yeah.
Right? You talk about nearest neighbors, your sales purchase agreement, put the price there, selling price.
So there's a kickback.
Then there's rebates,
Yeah.
which are not taken into consideration, but you borrow based on the SBA price. So you are levered on a property maybe 110, 120% for all you know. And that is very scary because if the market collapses 10%, you are very much worse off. Whereas in Singapore, something else I remind people as well, if you look at some SingStat data as well, as much as you think a lot more of us are borrowing, so you think household debt is going up. Actually, that has not been climbing as much as household income and savings. Yeah, if you look at the average household today, I believe the savings, the equity to debt ratio is probably less than 70%. So in most countries, sometimes you're geared 110. But in Singapore, because of government regulation and heavy control on our borrowing ability, in each property, there's quite a bit of fat. That's why the market can even come down 10%. We're not worried. It won't cause financial distress to the banking system. It won't cause financial stress to us because most of us have quite a significant bit of equity in the house. And this leads on to a second point also. If you think about all this so-called fat that is sitting around in the system, anytime you get bored, you can simply recycle that capital. I'm done with this house, tired. And because now you got 40% fat, which is maybe more than double of what you put in the first place, you are now able to buy 3 times what you initially bought. And while you're young, you still can gear. You got good income, Henrys, right? You talk about them. You can borrow also more. You can stretch it further because of your age. And because you built your equity earlier in life, now you have that capital to recycle. You don't even need your parents. That's why it's about starting early. And don't think about it coming in and saying, wow, I'm going to make huge loads of money in real estate. But coming from the premise that I want to own my own home. Home ownership is still culturally something maybe as an Asian person that I would like to have. So lifestyle, culture makes sense. Then from a financial perspective, is simply a forced savings program on the side to allow you to level yourself, to invest in something that is 4 times the multiple of your investment capital. And that's it. It's not a miracle pill for you to think, wow, gone are the days in the 90s where people could just sell a piece of option, right?
Hey, welcome to the Financial Coconut Podcast Network. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. And if you're loving what we're creating here, like, share, subscribe, share with your loved ones, comment in the comment section below. And yeah, we'll see you for great content on Chills with TFC.
Yeah, you put in a house and you take that paper
You
and
just
you
take a
sell
piece
it.
of paper and tomorrow you step out and say, hey, anybody wants this piece of paper? Give me 60 grand more, 80 grand more, 100 grand more, right? Gone are those days lah.
Okay.
So it's a stable savings.
So what is
sort of
what is the
program.
reference then? What is the ROI that I should look at? What's the rate of investment, rate of returns that I should
Yeah.
think about when I'm thinking of it in this way? Because it's relative to all the other products, right? If we're thinking like that, yeah.
Yes. So again, we look at
Based on your
Singapore
data stats, yes.
being a regulated market. If we look at it statistically, real estate has been growing less than 4% over the last, I think we're looking at it on a 30-year trend.
After mortgage?
No, this is just gross.
Gross.
Yeah,
Okay.
over 3%. Right? But this is ROI lah, right? So if you take it as a multiple of ROE,
4-time levered, right? In that sense.
correct. So are you able to put your cash anywhere else that can give you that 4x of 3.5, 3.7%? That's one question. Secondly is, can you put in another investment that can at the same time also put a roof over your head? Yeah. So there's utility for it. There's the pragmatic side of it, which is still housing. It provides you a roof over your head. At the same time, while you're putting it as a forced savings program to channel some money there every month to pay down your loan, it fits two purposes: investment and again your lifestyle, right? But again, don't look to it as it's my miracle pill that wow, this is where I'm going to make my gold mine and my gold pot. Even the days you talk about lottery effect from HDBs now also may be more difficult, right? Because now we are increasing the MOP from 5 to 10 years for those plus and prime flats. Then on top of that, the government still comes in at the end of the 10 years to take some of your winnings back. So moderation again. Yeah. So don't expect it to be a miracle pill anymore, but it is still an essential part of anybody's portfolio today. Use it as your Singapore citizenship rights, right? To own a property here without having to pay ABSD. It's a responsible thing to do, like I said, to house yourself and not be a burden to anybody else or be even burden even to the rental part, right? If everybody started to rent also, then we will get more people having to buy investment properties, and those who can afford to buy more investment properties because more people are renting, the rental yields go up. Then that creates also a little bit of imbalance there already, right? You still want home ownership. I think the mandate in Singapore has always been to have higher home ownership rates. Yeah.
Okay, so from that view, right, property returns 3 point something percent, that's kind of what we are expecting, right? What we think about. But it's probably not across the board, right? Like in Singapore, I think there's quite a structured way of like what center region, out of center region, that whole shenanigan, right? And it feels like based on, I read some of the reports that you guys publish, right? And there's quite a few variants in terms of how the different regions operate. They're not all the same, right? So in other words, the Tampines condo that you buy is different, right? From, I don't know, some marina residence that you get in town, right? So maybe you can kind of highlight for us across the board, like how do the different regions get established? Like, I don't know, like, because sometimes I hear district, sometimes I hear region, that whole thing. How do you establish that? How does the market operate across the board based on the stats? Like how does it run?
Same thing we were talking about over lunch. We were mystified how Jaden could have gotten a price so high in Jurong. And then you see some other properties that are closer to the central region are not even performing like that, right? So this goes back to, again, people, changing demographics, changing trends, changing requirements. You ask our parents last time, when you ask them, where do you stay? They always say, oh, I stay in Orchard Road. It gives you that air of difference, right? Today, I think people around our age group, you say stay Orchard. Why you stay Orchard, man? there, walao, no zap cai peng downstairs. Every day got to eat at expensive restaurant. Not say very connected. Every day tourists, so crowded, that kind of thing. So there's changing preferences, and this leads back to culture again, right? Today, as much as there's an aspiration to move closer to town, but today I would say we are a bit more complex also compared to our parents' time. Our parents' time used to see address labels and then PSF. Today we look beyond that. Does it have an NTUC downstairs? How far is the MRT away? Is there sheltered walkway to the MRT, or is it just downstairs? In fact, air conditioned even. So there are changing preferences as well. That's why when you talk about Jayden, where you have everything downstairs, people are willing to pay for it, be it Jurong or not. It's not so much about OCR already. It is about the setting itself on a more micro level. Is it a very livable spot? Schools around, transport node, and then now also we're a bit more studied. We look at future potential, right? So the whole Jurong transformation as well, manufacturing 4.0 going in, all that. So today we're more studied also. So we say, oh, this place, wow, not is it just well connected, has all the amenities there, but beyond that, there is a story for growth. Very different again to our parents' time where no, just buy D10, D11, you've made it. already.
包价
Yeah, right?
Actually, I think our parents' time would just buy anywhere, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
We
during
hit
that time it
one.
was much easier, correct?
Now just
Yeah.
buy D24. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, but I mean, we're also at this point now where affordability, like we mentioned, is a real issue lah. How many people can afford to stay in a $4-5 million apartment in Bukit Timah? That's not the real Singaporean, right? Or the average Singaporean. So the market is quite thin. So where you find where the market has been most active really is actually in the OCR, RCR, for the simple fact that these places have more amenities. Today you go to East Coast, you go to Tampines, everything is there. Would you even need to go to Orchard Road? Really?
Don't
That's
come.
number one.
Tampines a lot of people already. Don't come.
You just invited them, you know.
It's okay. Hey, you write in the comment section. I see whether you
Hey,
can come.
but more people means better for real
Yes,
estate.
yeah,
More
yeah,
demand,
yeah.
So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
invested there, really good
That's
for you,
okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing, lah. I mean, the reality today is people flock to where it makes more sense, and where it makes more sense today is actually a more pragmatic methodological way of looking at it, really. Because back in those days, like I say, it's address label. Oh, you must always buy D9, or if you've made it, you must always buy a certain area because of a certain class and stuff like that. But that's less apparent today. And more importantly, also going back to what I was talking about, pre-ABSD and post-ABSD. Pre-ABSD, if you notice in the mid-2000s all the way to 2010, 2011, 2012, I tell people the market used to be pulled from the front. You will see the Indonesians coming in to buy Scott Square in 2010. They paid 3,006, 3,008 per square foot, where we were still seeing $600 per square foot outside. We could never understand those prices. So from the back of the market to the front, there was a huge gap. And from the front, it was being pulled by the wealthy, also the wealthy from overseas, the global wealth and all that. Then post-ABSD, all that market fizzled off. Then what happened was we started to come up, the real Singaporean, the average Joe, their real estate value went up. Even a humble HDB flat that used to be 200,000 today might be 400,000, 500,000. And again, the equity is there, right? From used to be a $300,000 flat, you maybe sold it at 500,000. That's enough for you to jump into a $1.3 million house. Then the person who's selling you the $1.3 million house, now also same thing, take the equity out. He bought it for maybe 800,000, now sell you 1.3. He take the equity out, he can now buy a $2.53 million house. He doesn't want to go all the way, he goes for a $2.5 million house. Then the $2.5 million house owner, high flyer banker, whatever, she stayed there for a few years with the family already, and she says, time for me to move out. She sells the 2.5. She bought it previously at 1.7, 1.8. She takes that equity out. She goes into a landed. That's why your terrace houses today, you find it difficult to find something under 4 million. Its terrace houses used to be 1 million.
Yeah.
It's multiple of 4, no?
Yeah. It's not too long ago.
And not too long ago. That's exactly.
Yeah.
And this time round, that's why I said the market came from the back. It was the average Singaporean. I call it scratching each other's back, right? I go up, I help the person above me, the person then jumps up, then helps the person who's above that person. And there's this whole, I scratch your back, you scratch my back lah, right? So that has been the trend. That's why you notice the market has always been about the upgrade, right? The last really 7-8 years, the real estate agents who are doing well is also always about that, right? They call it asset progression, sell one, buy two, all this kind of thing. It's always about these young people who have released that equity and then want to climb up the ladder. So there's been that strong push on that. That's why the whole culture again has been, wow, made a lot of money in those years. You just needed to buy a new launch. A few years later, you're $400-500 per square foot more. You've made $200,000, $300,000, $500,000. So they keep wanting to do that again. But again, going back to the demographic, Singapore's median age below our population pyramid now is around 42 years old or so. If you think about 42 years old, I'm 42 years old. You still have enough borrowing runway. You've probably cycled your capital a few times and now amassed greater capital. You are probably earning good income. You talk about Henrys and all that as well. Late 30s, 40s, high income. There's a lot of things you can do at this age. So do you still want to continue to jump, right? And you have the ready capital there. You just need to recycle it. Sell out my house, because 9 out of 10 again of us own a house. If you were still starting from scratch, trying to save more money, that's why going back to the very original question, right? Should you get? I say get into it early, because you still help yourself to amass capital there. If you try to do it with other means, like I said, if you were maybe a crypto warrior, you're a hedge fund guy, or whatever, you can build your money elsewhere. Good for you. But majority of us don't have the time, the capacity, or the competency to build money. So the easiest way to do is just save money, buy a home, and every month just pay the mortgage and live there, and just wait for a couple of years. Even at 3% a year, because of a multiple of 5 years later, you're much better off than the person who was trying to still save money and 5 years later bought his first maybe resale flat, because maybe waiting until 35 years old, right?
The question I have is, I mean, like what you said, right? You unlock the equity and you go
Yeah.
ahead and you then expand that portfolio.
Yeah.
But given the recent measures by the government to throw in, for example, your second property is at, I think it's 15% ABSD for Singaporean, something along these lines, we can't effectively sell one and buy two. So since we're living in the home that we bought, we have to sell that one and buy something bigger, hopefully, that we can afford it, maybe even in the same location. But effectively, then I'm just paying down that loan again. Then you're just hoping that this pot of gold that you started with, to the point of before, downscaling, maybe, because maybe
Yes.
your retirement is enough to support you. Now, is that still a viable option? Like, for example, in the previous generation, people buy, you're lucky enough to get teacher's estate, or you're lucky enough to get effectively lottery, right? They will say that is my pot of gold. But from what you've just said, that may not be the case, or that should not be the thinking anymore.
Yes.
So how would we then go ahead and use this as part of our portfolio, given the fact of all the measures and we can't buy second or third properties, or
Yeah.
highly disincentivized to do that?
Yeah. The government will be happy if I say this. Just have more kids, have more names, right? No, but truth be told, you're absolutely right. That's why I said, if you go back to the culture of it again, that you're just building equity through a savings program. So if you, in the premise of buying a bigger house, you are channeling more money every month. Again,
Yeah.
your savings plan is increasing. So it's technically the same thing. And again, going back to the second premise, which is leverage, because of your time left towards 65, if you can still do a levered play like that, it still makes sense, because you're able to build larger amount of capital. Instead of channeling $3,000 a month, now you buy a bigger house. You buy a bigger house, you end up channeling $5,000 a month to your savings plan now. Still your money, yes, you pay more interest as well. But there's also, looking back at the moderate growth of 3-point-something% to 4% a year, right? If you can build ROI on that model of 4% a year, a $1.5 million house versus a $3 million house, 4% a year makes a lot of difference, especially over a tenure.
A question I have for you is, for me, there's two options, right? Say I own a private property. I could sell that one and get a bigger private property. The other one is to refinance the home and draw it down, right? And then use that money not into property, because I'm disincentivized to do so, but other means. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is that what you advise certain clients? Like, because it's an opportunity cost, right?
It is. It is. I personally call this optimizing capital. If I were to draw down on my current house and I have no alternative to invest in, because I got no name, I'm not going to pay 20% plus 5 as well. It doesn't make sense. Then I must have an alternative for this equity that I've drawn down. If I can't do that, I find no alternative, then it just makes sense for me to just sell the thing and remove all the equity to buy a bigger house. So it's about you again being in the know of alternatives, right? I said, like, crypto warrior, hedge fund guy, maybe you're on shares and equities and stuff like that. You might know that space well. Hey, to be honest, it might make sense, right? Because if you can generate 6-10% returns on cash, why are you in real estate, right? To be honest, just buy a HDB flat, take all your capital out, go and play the markets. Again, you see, that's why I said the premise of real estate works for most people who may not necessarily have that expertise or experience in other alternatives. If you have it, by all means, really. I mean, the numbers are there already. Like I said, 3+%, 4% a year. The government's also very happy with that kind of growth. They don't want 10% per year on real estate. That's going to make them also look very bad, because housing affordability becomes a real issue. So they have to keep prices moderate. So if you're the kind, again, you don't want to think so much about alternative investments and you just want to simply have a channel there to save some money every month, it still makes sense to do this. When you want to take this, when you want to optimize your capital, if you don't know how to do it beyond anything else from real estate, then you might as well better just put into real estate. Like I said, you wouldn't go and leverage on this cash position from your house to say maybe go and put in the stock markets because you believe you want to punt the stock. Yeah, that would be, to me, risky. Yeah, unless you have some insider or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean,
No inside knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Then, yeah. Maybe we're here to talk about inside stuff, right?
Yeah.
The inside scoop.
Yeah. So talking about insights, maybe you could share with
Yeah.
us a little bit, like what are some interesting developments out there that you personally think it's a bit more interesting? Like, because just now you just talk about how like the integrated way of doing, right? So like what is that kind of entry price? What are your price targets? Some of those things. I mean, you already published all this, right? So quite curious, like what are interesting to you?
So let's try to approach it from macro to micro. I think it's always good to funnel in. And I just want to share also, real estate is not rocket science. I always constantly repeat this. When I was doing my master's, I actually invited a developer over with me into one of the lectures. And that lecture happened to be on how to price GLS site, how to bid effectively for land. So it was all about financing modeling and stuff like that. So after the whole 3-hour lecture, the developer looked at me and said, this is pretty much what my people do, a back end with finance and all that. But I says, actually, at the end of the day, in real estate, it's only about one thing. And he said this in Hokkien, you must have the courage or you don't. He said that in Hokkien so you can translate it yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, real estate takes time for returns to come in. It's not like a stock tomorrow. Today is 250, tomorrow can be 280. It doesn't work that way. It requires quite a bit of time and tenure to invest. So it's always about, for me, I personally look at it more from a fundamental standpoint. So from a macro level, again, when you look down, why Singapore first? That's always my first question, right? Then after that, why a certain area or certain market segment? Why OCR? Why not RCR? Why not CCR, right? Then after that, of course, then it goes down to district. Why this district? Then from that district, why this specific locality? Then in this locality, why this development? So that funneling process is quite methodological if you think about it, right? But that's the way to approach it. So most of the time, the simplest measure on all these levels of funneling in is a simple gap analysis because the markets don't really move in tandem all the time. I'll give you an example. When we launched Amber Park by CDL in, I believe it was 2018, if I'm not wrong. Back then, we launched it at about $2,400 per square foot. Okay, District 15, freehold, almost at the doorstep of the MRT, the TL line that was being built. And back in those days, people were saying, 2004, you gotta be joking. Why would I pay District 15, 2004? Right? Again, the context of it around that region at that time, if you look across the road, say One Amber or those resale condos there, they're hovering around 1.6, 1.7. So there was quite a big disparity. So I always tell people, it's always your reference point. What are you doing your gap analysis? What is your context to it? In this case, people are looking to the surrounding area. So when the project was launched, it did 100 over units on the launch day, which wasn't a terrific result. But during that time, it was actually not too bad. Then that's it. It stalled for a while. 1 year later, all of a sudden, the building became 50% sold. Just like that, it just suddenly ran up. Then you wonder why. Because then Potong Pasir Woodley Residences was launched at prices close to 2,000 PSF. Then people are saying, Potong Pasir 99 years, 2,000 PSF. 2004 now looks very cheap. I might as well go and buy freehold District 15, most sought after location, MRT outside. So it all went there. So the market moves in different seasons and it's not in tandem, right? That's why it's for you to look at gaps. I'll share with you a personal example of mine. So I sold off an East Coast property. It was a smaller unit and I wanted to buy back the same property, but the next bigger layout. Again, increasing capital exposure there. But what happened was when I sold out there, the PSF, I was looking at two choices, either to buy back there or to buy back to District 3. Because I still believe East Coast, I'm a Katong boy most of my life.
I can tell.
Yeah. Is it?
Amber is your reference.
Yeah, I abandoned already. I'm no longer in the East Coast anymore. Yeah, a lot of them question my betrayal, right? Of the East Coast.
Going Jurong already.
Yeah. Hey, I myself looked at Jaden, to be honest. I said, wow, Eastie actually considering... But you see, today, we are like that. I'm pragmatic already. I'm no longer loyal to, I'm an Eastie, must stay Eastie.
Just don't go Yishun, okay?
Hey, walao.
Hey, don't say that lah. You never know, man. Yeah, never, in life, never say never. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, back to that point in time, to buy back into the same development, if not, I was looking at another one in District 3. But what happened was this District 15 one had run up much quicker. So that's why I was able to exit at a good price and I want to quickly buy back the larger unit. But then that had also run up too fast. Same category of units. So I decided to quickly put it into District 3, right? So back then when I sold off the D15 one, it was about 2,001 per square foot. Today it's about 2,122, around still the same. This was about maybe 3+ years ago, right? The other side in D3 was 1,800. So I felt to sell off 2,1, and then if I were to buy back there 2,000, it's already run up a bit too fast. They both started off at the same point at 1,600, right? So if I bought 1,600, I sell off at 2,1, I've got a nice $500 per square foot gap. I go over to the other side that also launched at 1,600, but then they were still at 1,800. So only went up $200. So instead of jumping back into the same building that has already gone up to 2,1, I decided, never mind, I'm not loyal to this. I go over to the other side, pragmatic again. So it's about the gap. You see the disparity and the dissonance. Beyond that, this is quite micro already. If we take one level up, why the district? Just now I talked about district. District 3, you're surrounded by Dawson HDB flats, Telok Blangah HDB flats, Tiong Bahru HDB flats. You read about them in the news, right? What do you usually read about them?
Very stylish, very cute. Cute neighborhood. I like the area. Yeah.
Nice area, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, they're always in the headlines because of new price benchmarks. So you have one of the most priced or expensive HDB flats in that area.
And I can kind of understand why. I walk around the area, I was like, well, this place
It's got a good sense of that, right?
quite vibe, here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why people go to the roof, right? Watch the firework. Then the MP very unhappy. Then she was like, please block them, right? I mean, she never said that, but I can't remember her name, right? But yeah, she says that.
Yeah. Life cannot be too good, right? Sometimes. Yeah, so life is good for a lot of them. And again, it's about that recycling of capital, right? If you bought something at 500,000, you can sell it for 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 million. You can really unlock a lot of equity. And when you're already fundamentally in such a centralized location, you would not want to venture too far off from that. So you want to spend your money in that location still, ideally, and not too far from town. Dempsey is your backyard. You've got Tiong Bahru. You're just very short train ride to Raffles Place, all that. So it makes a lot of sense from a fundamental perspective, again, that district, then to that area specifically. Then looking down at the micro, where I did talking about the gap, right? Where there you can still access at 1,800. You have more upside and buffer there. Yeah, so that's just a bit of a methodology on how I would approach property investment. You funnel in, and it's all fundamentals. It's never about, oh, this place is very sexy. I mean, yeah, you got vibe, all those kind of things, but all these constitutions need to be there, right? Anywhere from the fundamentals of location, transport, lifestyle amenities, then there's, of course, the financial part of it, right? If all your neighbors here can easily unlock almost $1 million of equity in their house, and if they want to buy back into the system, they are going to be able to buy 3 million at least. So if you're going to be staying around there, and everybody here can deploy up to $3 million when they come out of this place, you have that base there waiting for you, right? East Coast, same thing. Everybody there, old wealth, new wealth. There's a lot of wealth there also. Anytime they want to recycle their capital, if they do want to move, some of them, maybe from Mountbatten, they move to Bukit Timah, then they go to Bukit Timah. But if not, most Easties traditionally will still want to stay in the East.
Die hard.
Except
some weird reason.
Some who are more pragmatic, like me also. You see, that's why I say I would have really loved to stay back there. My family's still there. But because I'm in this business, I see things a different way. And that's why I'm more pragmatic about it. That's why you asked me about Jurong. I could be pragmatic about it as well. It's not about me saying, oh, but I couldn't see myself living there. I think today, a lot more of us are also a bit more open-minded already. Gone are the days, like I said, my parents' time, right? Where it's like, no, if I have money means I must stay District 10 or must stay District 9. Today, you have money, you have choice. That's why you look at Lentor area. People are wondering why so many sites, why the demand still so strong. Because if you look at Lentor as a position on the Singapore map, right? Above you is the north. The north is a big population center. And what's in the northeast? Punggol, Sengkang, Pasir Ris. Huge population center. For them to move technically closer to the city center or the epicenter of Singapore, Lentor makes a lot of sense. Then now they have the transport connectivity, the TL line, running U-Trade to Orchard Road and into the city centre. It makes sense. More importantly, from a pragmatic affordability standpoint, Lentor sites were primarily cheaper last time when they bought them. So the access entry price is still affordable and accessible.
What's a PSF now at Lentor area?
Around 2,000-ish, 2,001, probably for the later launches. Yeah, that's still on the lower side of things. Again, because we have already seen, it's very tough for any new GLS sites in OCR to be sub 2,000. It'll be quite tough for
That's
that.
the new floor.
Yeah. I don't know whether you remember when we hit 1,000 and everybody's like, 4 digits PSF. Now you find $1,000 per square foot. Right? You'll be grabbing
like
it.
shopping center, bidding war.
Fair.
Yeah.
So what we have been going through and discussing, what you've been sharing, all very pragmatic, all very numbers based, right? Logical thinking, so on and so forth.
Which is what I like.
Yeah. So, okay, barring the logical thinking, which obviously comes with experience, right? Given you're in the industry and so on, where can we go and find all of this information, right? I'm sure there's a ton of information out there, but what are certain things that or certain areas where you think these are things you look at, and then based on that, you can then come up with the logical thinking.
Okay, I think the most important thing before going out to hunt, you always need to assess your ammunition first. Right? That's why many people always come to me last time and say, hey, I want to buy something. I said, first and foremost, get the finances sorted first. You want to know what you have to work with. That's not the most important thing first. Right? Because you may not want to use everything as well. Just because you can get a $3 million loan doesn't mean you want to deploy all of it. Right? And in fact, sometimes it might make sense to save some of the equity that you have for maybe other alternatives if you want to try your luck with other alternatives. So that's the first thing to get off first, because by then establishing your price or how much you want to put into the market, then that will determine which parts of the market to go into. Like let's say you have $2 million to deploy. Would you go OCR and try to buy a 3-bedroom? Or would you go to CCR and buy a good 2-bedroom with high rental? See, the choice is there. Which is a better investment? Then we go back again fundamentally to what are your investment goals? Are you here because you don't really need to build capital anymore? You just want something with longevity and not have issues with rental, and you just want to have very stable rentals? Then you just leave your money there. But if you're still a young person and you need to build capital, then you might need to buy something that has more upside. Then for all you know, you might actually end up picking the 3-bedroom OCR. You try to find something sub 2 million if you can.
But where do I go and find this information? Like on the web, do I Google it? Like what would you look at?
You know, for me as a CEO of an agency, you know what my answer is going to be for that.
Talk to an agent.
Look for an orange tea advisor. No, but truth be told, you see...
Control anymore, I send invoice. Okay? Yeah.
No, but truth be told, you see, I'm also very pragmatic in my space. I do sometimes even challenge what is the value and the role of an agent today, when actually there's so much data providers out there to empower the consumer. In fact, we've realized the consumer today as well is very well studied, very well read. They see all these shows like that. They educate themselves. You know, we're going through this process now, also trying to pivot the company and try to reposition ourselves. Because being a typical agent will not cut it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not going to be relevant.
I don't need you to clear paperwork. Come on. Yeah.
Would you pay someone
no, I don't
2%
need.
to clear
You're too
paperwork,
expensive for paperwork.
But you see, yet when we come down to this now, when I'm talking about all these things, these are still things that people still need that assurance, the guidance, the methodology, the advisory, the consultancy level, right? It's not today, it's, hey, Reggie, this one, wow, this property very good. You must go and buy this property. You cannot do that anymore. Today, if you had wanted to buy something, you might have started watching videos, podcasts, reading up on reports.
Definitely.
Doing your own research. 2-3 years in the making.
Yeah.
Finally, when you're able to just pull the trigger, then you might actually just engage possibly the agent then.
Yeah.
To ensure that when you are making that offer, you are doing the right thing. You're making sure you may not even know how to do that deal. To negotiate a deal. So that the value of the agent might come in at that stage. Or at the same time, it might start slightly earlier. Right? That, okay, I'm ready to pull my plug already. I've been studying so much and all that. Now I need to talk to a professional who can advise me on how to funnel down even more. So I realized, okay, I want to aim for, let's say, District 3 already. Right? District 3, I've been looking at this few, but it's still this few and you also don't know how to make sense of it and maybe get down to that final hurdle of actually making an offer. Then that's when the advisor will come down. But today, I mean, going back to your question again, to put it very simply, there are plenty of things out there for you to explore. The problem today, I can assure you, is not that
there's no information. It's how to think about the information.
Yes, is to help you to distill, because there's just so much. Somebody says this, somebody says that, then somebody else says something else. Then you're scratching your head, it's like, gosh, all makes sense, but who do I listen to, right? Yeah, and sometimes the good thing about having an agent, again, this is not about me representing the company, but even for me when I sold my own home or when I buy a home, I still use an agent. I don't even use myself. Yeah, because you sometimes need a third party.
There is value in intermediary.
Yes.
I can stand by that. There's some value in intermediary.
It takes you away from the emotional quotient sometimes, because when you're buying your own, it's a lot of money, Sometimes you're caught up in the whole process and you just don't have that assurance because you're clouded, whether in judgment and emotion and all that. That's why sometimes it's healthy to have a third-party perspective. Yeah, obviously one who, of course, puts your needs before theirs, right? Because at the end of the day, if they want to build a long-term relationship, they got to make sure that this step that you're taking is a good one, so that you'll be very thankful for it. And when you want to take your next step, you'll be reminded of them, right? So, of course, again, you have to find a person who has that kind of longevity of relationship, who wants to build that as well. But the most important thing is you can do all the exploration on your own, but finally, when it comes down to execution, you may still want to actually engage somebody to help you to do the final push. But again, wealth of knowledge out there today, sometimes also don't overwatch don't over listen. Because you might end up just being, oh gosh. I've known of people who said they are waiting for the market to come down. I've known of people who have been sitting on the sidelines for almost a decade. A decade's opportunity cost is quite detrimental on one's financial health.
Right. In the future, if you have any other interesting things, you can let us know. Right. And I hope the audience find it interesting today. Right. So thank you for your time. All the best in refreshing your agency. Right.
Thank you.
Hope that it
Thank
gets
you.
better. Okay. Take care. Take care. Have a good time.
Thanks. Take care, guys. See you.
Awesome.